Today we're going to be working on Star Shift Origins International Edition. So what we're in the process of currently doing is translating Star Shift Origins, our first game that came out in November of 2021, to other languages. But it which is a challenge. But I think I figured out a decent method for doing so, and I'm kind of well on my way to getting there. There was a few little hiccups though, and I figured it would be useful to do a devlog on this because there's a lot of little ins and outs, but it's not too bad once you get the hang of it. But there's still a few things I haven't solved yet. So the reason why I'm doing this today instead of my usual Rebellion stream is that I have an appointment that, of course, is on a Saturday. So I only have like 2 hours of solid work I can do on stream today instead of my usual 6 or 7. So I figured this would be a more tightly focused task, and it's something I needed to work on anyway. And it's also useful for other people who might want to translate their game into other languages. So let me go over some of the components of what we're even using to do this. So I looked at a lot of different localization plugins, and a lot of them, had functionality, but they were very poorly documented, so it was hard to figure out how to make them work. This one, though, called VG Person's Custom Translation Engine, though, I feel had the best documentation and got the closest to everything we needed. We have a couple of languages we're going to be doing. The Spanish edition is almost translated. We're going to do Japanese. We're going to do simplified and traditional Chinese, Russian. We might not end up doing German because most people from Germany can speak English. So I kind of want to focus on country languages that the people who live there probably don't speak English as well. So, so that way, the game can get out to a larger audience. So I use this plugin to actually do the, where you differentiate between that it is a different language that you're using and then alternative image file names and stuff like that for images that are in a different language. If you have an image for the top of somebody's store or shop in the game, translating those images. But you can see that when you first open up, I've already started work on this, so when you first open it up, you get to pick the language. So if I pick Japanese, you'll see it suddenly turns into Japanese. And those are just the images. I do have dialogue and everything like that. But the problem is that this very first screen, if I add more than 2 different languages, it doesn't actually switch over to the images for those other languages, which is weird. It might be because I'm using switches or activating switches outside of an actual game, because the switch and variables, the switch system works differently prior to actually starting or loading a game, because it doesn't carry over across save files and stuff. So there's a plugin I use for that called Global Meta, but I can't use the Global Meta when I'm exporting the languages because it actually keeps it as another language rather than English when it exports. So that part's kind of a mess, and I'm still figuring that out. But I need to get a raw version of the translation, though, in traditional Chinese though. Okay, I've already done Japanese. And the way that this works, this plugin creates a folder and it exports everything that's done in English to a folder called it's a folder called languages and then en, and then it turns all the JSON files into TXT files. And if it doesn't find a TXT file, it'll just use the original. So it doesn't actually break if like something's missing. It'll just be in English instead of the other language if like we missed something. And English, and then it gets transported into a file that looks something like this. And this is like the equivalent of what's in a JSON file, but it's a little more readable. And so I have that for other languages too. So we have Spanish. And then we have Japanese as well. I already did Japanese, but I don't. This is a raw translation, so before we actually release it, we're going to give this to people who are fluent in it and say, hey, is this passable or is this shit? And then have them fix the little stuff and everything like that. So, but let me show you how I do the bulk translation, because that part is pretty cool. And since I need to do it for traditional Chinese anyway, we'll do that first, because that way I have a version of it ready to go when I'm testing the other stuff. So first of all, I'm going to copy all of my files and put it in there's a program called Translator++. And I made a folder called raw translation, which is where I put all of my game files for for when I'm trying to translate this into another language. Okay, so first I put my game files in there. Now keep in mind the plugin I used automatically exports. If you have that plugin setting turned on, it automatically exports to English, right? So we're kind of tricking it into providing a full translation in this way, because normally the way it would work is you'd export it to English, take the English files and put them in a separate folder called ES for Spanish or JP for Japanese, and then from there you go through every single file manually and translate it. That's how you would normally, if you were just using the localization plugin, that's how you would do it. Which of course can take a bit of time to read through all those files and change every little thing. Instead, what I'm doing is there's a program called Translator++. It's designed to be used with rpgmaker, and it will totally translate the game, all the JSON files, everything into the other language with one bulk translation using like Google Translate, or there's other translation engines too. That's just the one I'm using because it's the most widespread. And then the minute I open the game, it exports that into the English folder in this folder, and it's actually in the other language instead. And so then I just take that and copy it and paste it into the correct folder. So now that we have our raw translation or raw set of game files here, I'm going to now open Translator++. Now, since I've already done this before, I'm not making a lot of changes to the actual core game at this time, because it's kind of a nightmare. If you're gonna, like, if we were trying to do all these languages like while we're actively developing the game, it would be a nightmare. But since Origins is pretty much done, it's done, and we're not making significant changes to it at this time. That's the right time to do this, so to speak. So we'll close this. Close this. So the last one I did was Japanese, okay? So I'm going to open that because what it does, there's an import process where it imports all of the stuff like actors and one sec. Okay, so since I've already, because there's a process where it imports everything, and you can see it has like actors, animations, armors, classes. This is all stuff that that it's reading from the JSON files. Now, there's stuff that you don't want to translate too. So, for example, everything I've flagged in red here, like I literally manually went right-click, flag, right-click, flag, right-click, flag. And these are cells that I'm telling to ignore translation. The reason why, because these are the note sections of, you know, actors and battlers and stuff like that, and this controls like their animations for the battling and stuff. So you don't want to actually translate like the note tags like this, because it'll break your game. So I've done the hard work of going through and you know, specifying exactly which cells should not be translated and exactly which ones should be. And I did, and the last language I did was Japanese. So it's now relatively easy for me to open up this Japanese file and then save as, you know, we're gonna do traditional Chinese. We're going to do traditional Chinese. And even though it's still Japanese right now, that doesn't matter. What we're going to do is select all of the, you know, all of these. And we're going to do a bulk translation. So we're gonna do English to traditional Chinese. English to traditional Chinese. Okay. And for some reason, there's like two settings for the same thing, so I'm gonna go English traditional Chinese. And then with all of these selected, we're going to do a batch translation, original text. Ignore if already translated, no. Overwrite cells, yes. I don't want it to play the sound, I don't like the sound. And we tell it, do not process row with selected tags, blacklist. So I think those are the only ones I might have used. And then we put it in the target column initial, and we just replace all of these Japanese ones with Chinese. And then we do a translate now. And this little batching thing takes a little while here. Well, we have to kind of wait this part out. I'm guessing it has something to do with Google's API not liking if you're translating so much at once. I think because that's why it's done in batches and it waits 5 seconds between each batch. So meanwhile, while we're waiting for that, there's another thing we got to solve. Because this is not the one that's running in Translator++ right now. This is the one I'm actively working on, the one I copied. So we have a problem with this, though. So the problem is that if I use only 2 languages, it works fine. If I use more than 2, it gets weird. So let me explain. So I go... First, I turn English on and I turn all the others off because that is the default behavior when you first open. It's in English by default. So the first thing I do when you first turn on the game is turn English on and turn the other ones off. And then config manager language EN. This is telling the translation engine that you're using English. Okay. And then we have choices. And even though I tell it to load different images when you choose Spanish, for example, it will actually not work. It'll work on whatever language you put second. Like when I put when I put English, see, I have English, Spanish, Japanese, and I say if, when Japanese is chosen, I even tell it to use different image file names and stuff. But if I try to do it on any other language, like you'll see that Japanese works and Spanish doesn't. Okay, so Japanese works, and then if I go to Spanish, it does change the title, but the menu doesn't pop up. Oh, wait a minute. What's that? So new game Spanish. Okay. I think I was messing with it, like trying to get it to work, and I didn't finish. So I'm still kind of catching up on what I needed. Oh, yeah. Okay. Maybe I figured it out, but I just didn't rename these. Because what happened was that I used a plugin that lets the switches stay outside of a save file. But it was fucking shit up. So I was like, why is it looking for the English files even though I chose Spanish? And it's because of the switches that I was messing with. Okay, let me see. Okay, so maybe it works now. Okay, Spanish seems to work. Okay. Now if I go to Japanese. Okay, great, seems to work. What about Russian? Okay, I think I need to add Russian in there. Oh, okay, because I've only done the whole thing for a few languages here. Got it. Okay. Now, I shouldn't have to do, like, if this language, then this. If this language, then this. If this language, then this. Every single thing in the game. This is just for the title screen, where you have different image names for... sorry, my cat's crying. One sec. Okay, we're hungry. Okay. So let's see if this finished. Okay, so let me figure out what map this is. Map 207. Okay, so I want to ignore 207. Okay, so now that the raw translation has occurred, if I go to the raw translated version, now I want to open up the game and have this export automatically to the files. It'll export to the English folder, but that's okay because we're doing a separate copy of the game. Okay. So the export should have occurred. So now if I go to that folder and I go to languages, and I go to English, it should be, oh, no. Oh, maybe I have to tell it to export. Oh yeah, because I turned the plugin off. Yeah, okay. Now we will tell it to export. Oh, yeah, that's right, I forgot. I translated it, but I didn't inject the translation. Okay, so I gotta do that now. One sec. So now I inject the translation. And then just don't copy the materials, just inject the translation. And that's where we want to do it, is the raw translation. Now we inject it. Alrighty, now we open it. I'm gonna get rid of all the stuff that's in the English folder. You can see the name has changed and everything. Okay. And now languages, English. And then you can see now it's in Chinese. And it's the whole... And see, there's some stuff that doesn't translate, like this Capel, you know, that's the person's name. But it translated most of it, and... Whoa. God, Chinese is one hell of a language, let me tell you. Whew. I'm just glad that the writing system and that you can just have like 20 something letters and they represent the spoken sound, and that seems a lot more simple to me than having thousands of symbols that mean different things if you put them in different orders and tones and blah blah blah. Okay. So now that we have our raw translation of traditional Chinese, we copy just the stuff from from the translated folder out of there and into our main game. And in this way, I can do multiple languages relatively quickly and then just some touch-up. And there, now we have a traditional Chinese translation in there. I think I even want to... Okay, now I can close this. Yeah, and I think the one that I am gonna have to cut out is probably German, because most people from Germany can speak English, so it's just the easy choice to remove that one. Turn the exporting off when you're not actually trying to export languages. Additional shiny.
繁体中文
I hope that's it. I guess I'll figure it out if it's not. Yeah, I think I like this one. I think I like that very much. And we're going to turn this into an icon. Image system. Icon set. Open with Yeah, see, this was the problem I was running into. Is that it's trying to use the other when I have the plugin turned on, it tries to look for another image file that's not there. Yeah, that was what it was. I think the problem had to do with the global meta stuff. Because I think if I turn the global meta choices off, then it actually works again too. Global meta controls. And now I bet it works normally again. And now it doesn't show the menu buttons. And see, it works totally fine if I turn the translation engine off. But I can't turn it off, of course, if I'm actually translating. The see, works normally, but then it is looking for something else when I turn it back on. So I'm kind of wondering what the deal is there. Oh, there we go. Oh, never mind. I think it's because it's still off. Oh no, it's... Okay, fuck, yeah. Now let me... Let me try something else. Let me try making the switch for Spanish just a totally different switch. Because I think there's a problem. Okay, wait a minute. Let me see if somehow any of the switches besides English gets turned on. Let's see. Open main menu. We're only doing this to do a test because I think it's just got fucked up from when I when the global meta controls were turned on and then I turned it off again, but it might still be stuck in that switch being on when it shouldn't be. So let's do a debug and see. Language, okay, only English should be on, and that is the case. Oh, let me turn it off and see. No, let me take away the main menu screen. So for all intents and purposes, this should work. It works for Japanese, but not for Spanish. But I still think it has something to do with those global meta controls that got fucked up. So let me try making Spanish like its own like separate switch than that exact switch. Let's say ES2. And see if we run into the same thing. as the wrong thing. Let me make sure that this is set to, yeah, English is the base language. And it only, and it, you know, it works normally if I turn the translation engine off, okay? So there's something going on that I have to figure that out. But when I turn that off, which I can't turn it off when I'm in game or whatever, then it works normally. So there's something going on where it's automatically translating it back or something. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so let me see if let me try, you know, with Russian and see what that does. Oh, it's set to the Japanese symbols right now just because I haven't put the... Okay. Now that's working normally. All of them except Spanish are working normally. And I think it's something odd from when I did the meta controls. Okay, now let's make the ones for Russian really quick. Because I gotta test this by having all of the languages present. Let me try this too. Interesting. Now it's working? Or did I turn off the translation engine again? Yeah, I turned it off again. It's just so weird that when I choose Spanish specifically, it doesn't do what it does with all the other languages. Maybe there's something in the languages folder that's different. Like in the Spanish language folder that's different. Let me just create a new folder that's Spanish, that's totally all Spanish, or totally English, but using the Spanish folder to see if there's anything weird there. There might be one of these files that's a little off, and that's why it's doing this. Because the other new languages I'm adding are working fine. Just Spanish was the first one I was messing with, so I think I fucked something up that I'm unaware of. Okay. That time it worked, but did I turn it off again? No, that time I didn't turn it off. Okay, I figured it out. There's something that was translated in those files that shouldn't have been translated, and it fucks up the image file name. Okay, but at least I figured it out. Well, now that we know that, we can find out which file it is, and then I can narrow down from there. Because if it is, this could be an advantage in a way, because if I can find out where that's manipulated, that might be where I change the image file names for like alternative images in game. Because we're trying to do this in a way where you don't have to manually specify a different image for each language. You just put a -es on the end or a -jp on the end, and then it will like automatically go throughout the game. But I'm still figuring this out. So Spanish is good. Japanese is good. English is good. I'm gonna do the Russian ones too, because it's just bugging me to say. Okay, here we go. But I'm glad I figured that out. That's easy enough to fix. Okay, great. So Great. I'm glad I figured that out. Okay. So we open up new game here. We've got to Google Translate English to Russian.
Новая игра.
New game. God, I hate when I accidentally like click a text layer and then it like makes that weird bullet point thing. Okay. Pixel. If I can arrange them by date added. It's not the right order because I forgot which font I found for Russian that actually shows up. It's not the same font as the normal Star Shift font because that font doesn't have Cyrillic characters. Let's see here. I think it was maybe that one, but no. I think a little larger than that, yeah. So far, retro gaming is close, but I believe it was a different font I used. I'm trying to find something that's kind of close to the normal font that I use. Oh, then maybe this was the one. I think this. Oh no, never mind. That's not it. It had kind of that blocky look to it. I have so many fucking fonts. I can't find shit. Okay. Okay, international. Okay. While we're waiting, I'm going to do another one for simplified Chinese because we needed to do that one too. So I'm just going to do that while we wait. I'm glad I figured out that Spanish thing though. That was really bugging me. So we got a translator plus. We got a raw translation. We get rid of the English folder. We get rid of the English folder and then we do a raw. Oh, and then we leave out map 207. We want to leave out map 207. Or maybe it's okay because I already told it to ignore it. Ignore. Okay, yeah. Yeah, we're good because I already told it to ignore everything in 207 pretty much. So now let's change the language from English to simplified Chinese. And save as simplified. Simplified Chinese. You know what? I bet I know what's wrong. I bet map 207 is what went wrong. I bet if I put Spanish back. Yeah. Because I've made changes to map 207 and this is pre-changes. So I think that's what fucked it up. So I'm going to test it. I think if I get rid of the fake Spanish folder and I bring the real one back and I go to map 207, yes, I believe that's the problem. I bet if I just delete map 207 and try again, I bet it's normal again. I bet it's normal now. Yeah, okay. Okay. But you can kind of see the danger of if you're making lots of changes and then having to like redo the changes, how it can be kind of a nightmare. But I think we can barely pull this off to where it'll be good, but only because the game is pretty much complete. Opciones. Yeah, so we just want to avoid map 207 being translated. So that would probably be the same for these two. But luckily with this plugin, what's nice about it is that if it doesn't have a file to go off of, it just uses the original. So that means that like there's a lot that doesn't break if you forgot something or whatever. Like it won't break the game or anything. We already have Russian. Okay, but what's good about... okay, I'll figure out the global meta thing later. Okay, because there's also another problem of like if somebody like let's say you pick Russian, and then you play the game in Russian, and then you load the game in English. Then, what does that do? And if you're that's why I'm talking about the global meta at all, because it allows switches to stay switched on or off and across all save files, and whether or not you picked one language once and then tried to pick another later. Like of course I can make it so that it doesn't, so that the name because there's gonna be stuff like if you pick Russian, for example, and then you start the game and all of the characters are named with Russian names, like the Russian equivalent, and then you try to load the game in English, they'll still have the original Russian name that they put in there from when they loaded the game last time. So there's little things that suck about localization, okay? But I think I do want to figure this out, and I think we can figure it out. Okay. It's easy to get sidetracked though. Okay. So I've set it for traditional Chinese, or sorry, simplified Chinese now. And we'll do a batch translation, overwrite cells, and do not process those, correct. And we will do a batch of simplified Chinese. So we'll let that do its thing while we're working on this. And finding the font I used for the title screen, because I found a font and I used it. I just don't remember what it was, and it was whatever this font is. Okay, so like let me go to Origins. Image picture. It was whatever this font was. It looked pretty close to me. So I need to figure out what font that is. This one kind of looks like it, but it isn't. M42 flight, whatever. only I could see the order upon which. Let me see. If I recall correctly, the fonts that I used, I added to the game folder as well. Okay, that one is weird. ZX Spectrum Chronotype. Might be Chronotype. Retron or Zilonium. Zilonium? No. Pixeloid Sans. Game. Smallest Pixel 7. Retro Gaming. It might be Chronotype. Chronotype isn't in here. Maybe it's the one with the X. TVWX. I'm just going to do what I did last time because I'll probably find it faster this way. If I go to defont.com and I go to pixel bitmap fonts and I just type in the words, which one, because like some of them have the Cyrillic alphabet and some of them don't. So when I put it in here like this, God, it might be retro gaming. It looks similar. Yeah, I bet it's probably retro gaming. It just looks a little chubby for my taste, but whatever. Fuck it. It's probably okay. Let's see. Let's do a good 3 pixel. Yeah. So file. Game are you? Load game.
Загрузить игру.
Загрузить игру. Okay. Zagaritsi Guru. Oh no, of course it's not gonna fit. Zagaritsi Guru. Oh, great, it barely fits. Okay. Load game. Are you? Zagaritsi. Load game, are you? Options.
Параметры.
Parameter. Parameter. Parametry. Yeah, that makes sense. Ugh. God, the phone. I fucking hate the phone. It's like every single day, my phone's just going off all the time with people asking for shit and needing shit, or hey, can you help me with something? I just get like sick of the phone. Like it's always when I'm trying to work on something too.
Выйти из игры. Let's see how it looks. Let's see how the Russian one works. Oh yeah, that looks nice. Looks a little smaller than what I would have thought, but it's fine. And then I debated whether or not the title, like because what I did was I found how to spell Star Shift in Cyrillic, and so that this thing at the top isn't actually real words. It's just how you would pronounce Star Shift in the Russian language. So
it's like an English name written in Cyrillic. Because the translation was something long and weird. So it should read as Star Shift and then the word for Origins, whatever this word is. But I think this screen is really cute. Like when you're picking the language, it actually like morphs the screen. And I'm gonna change so that the version changes language too. But I gotta figure out the plugins and stuff too. So like, if the plugin was in a different language, like the plugins, if stuff in the plugin is in English, how do I make that translate into another language? There's gonna be a couple ways that we can do that. There's something built into this plugin, but it kind of doesn't work. So I might have to find a second plugin for just the JavaScript files or something like that. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Let's see how our traditional Chinese is going. Or our simplified Chinese, sorry. So now that that's complete, we will inject the translation. So we're going to inject that. Then we're going to take those files out of there and get those going. Raw translation. Okay, the English folder is gone. All right, good. And now we'll do this export to... fucking phone again. One sec.
Звездная смена. Истоки звездного сдвига. Звездная смена. Звездный сдвиг. Старшифт. 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 Синь Yi. Синь Yi. Синь Yi起源。星移起源。星移起源。 新游戏
Oh, okay. My microphone was muted. Okay, that's weird. I don't know why it shows up like that on those ones. I mean, it still technically works, but that's weird. I'm just testing to see the dialogue parts working in the various languages. Weird that options TC didn't show up. Oh, I saved it as a Photoshop file. That's what's up. Yeah, I don't know why it loads it. Why it loads the choices like this sometimes. I kind of want it to be consistent with the other ones, but I don't know how much time I want to waste on it.
卡佩勒。
See if that fixed it. Should have fixed it. Okay, great. Now basically just swapping out all those English words that somehow didn't get translated.
麦康。
Okay, so I gotta come up with it because MatCon is some kind of made up term I made for matter conversion, whatever, the teleportation system. So if in English I put in like. Or maybe I put in yeah, maybe if I just replace it with the word teleportation. Detecting teleportation signals from the other vessel. That works, I guess.
传送
So we'll go across all files and replace matcon with I think I should probably just replace Sir with Captain. I think I should just replace Sir with Captain, because I don't know how that translates. And even in English, sometimes people don't like when it's a female captain and they say sir and they want to say ma'am, but it's actually okay to say sir in that context, but people feel differently about it, I guess. I don't know.
埃弗森。
Oh, because of the slashes.
弓箭手中尉。新联盟。
Nexus Station. Oh, yep. I'm aware of that website too. I use some of those. I actually paid for this because if you pay for the subscription on that website, you can get unlimited access to their whole library, and it's still valid if you cancel your subscription. So I did the 1 month of subscription. It was like $5 or something, and then I downloaded everything I liked in bulk, and then I unsubscribed. But I did use some of those tracks. Yeah, welcome, Joel Eagle. I actually am about to go because I have an appointment today. That's why I kind of decided to do the translation thing today, because it was like a focused thing I could kind of get done in a shorter stream. And I did. You know, it's kind of cool. I mean, you can see like I'm getting it going. Like if I open it up right now. And first thing you get is a bunch of languages. Like if I pick Russian, it switches to Russian. Even the dialogue is translated and everything. The only thing that's missing is the individualized like stuff where it's written in the plugin, like JavaScript files, the plugins, like where if you've written something in English in those plugins. I haven't figured out how to automatically translate those yet. But the main bulk
of the game is translated into these languages already, just like some of the menu stuff isn't. So this is Spanish. And then we got Japanese. There's still some stuff that doesn't translate, but I got most of it translated. And then we got Chinese as well. I mean, I think I figured out a really like practical method for translating one's game into multiple languages. Yeah, no, and I think that being able to play this game in multiple languages, it's a mix of plugins. It's actually one plugin that does where it reads from separate language files, and it's TXT files. So they're actually easier to mess with than if you're trying to mess with raw JSON files. But I'm also using Translator++, which you can import your project into this, and then you can do a bulk Google Translate on all of the JSON files in one swoop. And that's what so I do this first, and then I export, using the plugin, I export all of what I just did into the set of TXT files. And then I just move it into the proper folder, and most of it's translated. Most of it in these, and when I give it to a native speaker, they say, you know what, it's not bad. I can understand it. I would change some things, change some grammar here and there, or that term isn't quite right, but I still get it. You know, like that's basically been the feedback even from the raw translation. So what I'm doing is just kind of making it easier for a native speaker who can just kind of look it over and proofread it and change the little things, and then we'll have a full translation in multiple languages. And I think that this will actually help the game get more noticed, like in other markets and stuff. I kind of plan to make Origins a free game, you know, as soon as my contract with the publisher is over. No. It's not. I didn't have to translate code. What this is when you open up this, when you open up your game in... okay, let me go back to the beginning. So let's say we're not using Translator++ at all. If we're not using Translator++ at all, this plugin, what it does is, there's a plugin called Custom Translation Engine. And you specify the languages that are in it, and you specify whether you want to export base text. If you turn this, normally this is set to false. If you set it to true, what it will do is the minute you open your game, it will export everything as it is in English to a folder called Languages EN. And from there, everything is in there. Now, normally if you weren't using Translator++, you would then open up these files individually and edit them to be in the other language, okay? And so if we wanted to do it the traditional way, that's how you do it. And that's quite a lot of work for somebody to do. But what the Translator++ allows me to do is it allows me to open up all of the database and everything like that. And what I do here is I have to tell it to ignore certain parts of it, because I don't want to translate the note tags for like the skills and stuff, or the weapons and all that, because the note tags control like animations and battle motions and stuff that the player would never see, and that actually breaks your game, right? So what I did was I did the hard work of going through each column and manually saying ignore this one. So I would definitely want it to ignore this one, because if it's trying to translate throw object, it'll translate these tags to Chinese or something, and that will break the game. So I've already gone through the hard work of going through each and every one of the things it should ignore, and then having it translate the rest. And then what I do is I take a copy of my game and put it in a folder that I call raw translation. And then I use this program and I do a bulk Google Translate, and then I inject the translation into the one I'm fucking with. And then I open the game, and then it exports to the EN folder like it's English, but it's not. And then I get a complete list of files in the other language, and then I copy those files into my actual game project file. And then that's how I've pulled this off. And I still have things that I need to work on, so I need to make it so that images are different. If, like, let's say you have says like Earl's Bar and Grill. You would want that to be in the other language. So the plugin allows for, if you put a dash language code at the end, like -es, load the Spanish version of the image file. If you put dash, RU, load the Russian version, without having to actually go into the game and manually say on like pictures that show up in the game, if English do this, if Spanish do this, if Russian do this. I don't have to do that. I just use the English name, and if there's a dash RU at the end, it'll use the Russian version without having to like actually event it or anything like that. I do have to event it on the first screen though, so I did have to do that for the first screen where you're picking a new game or something. So you can see how long it can be, because I have to do it for, if you pick this language, do this. But I do it like, if Japanese, turn Japanese on, turn all the other ones off. You use these image files, but the plugin has functionality for when you're in game. You just put a dash, whatever the language code is at the end, and make an alternative image, and it will replace in real time. And if you don't, and if it can't find the image, then what it'll do is it'll just use the default one, so it won't actually break the game, even if like you forgot an image somewhere. So yeah, I think I figured out a decently smooth method for doing this, and yeah, yep. I am setting it up for success in multiple countries. But in any case, I have to go because I have an appointment, and that's the only reason why I did this today instead of the usual Rebellion stream. But yeah, you can kind of see, if anyone's curious, they can kind of see the process, because I went through the process during this whole devlog. So I anticipate within a few weeks, if we were rushing it a few weeks, we could get this online in all these languages. I'm taking my time on it though, because I'm sure there's some unexpected crap that I have to figure out as I do this. So I'll continue to work on it. But anyway, yeah, exactly. If you open the Japanese version and it actually says, it's a picture on top of a shop that says salvage, we got to come up with a Japanese equivalent to that, not every image has a language attached to it, but some of them do. So I will have to actually make different images for the different things, but it's not going to be too crazy. But anyway, I gotta go. I have to meet these high school students. They're gonna do construction and stuff at the village, so I gotta go. But you have a great weekend, and everybody else too, and thanks for stopping